Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. horizon, watching the stars through the large window. The ship had been traveling for 3 months now, visiting new solar systems that no human had ever seen before. Jake was 35 years old and had spent most of his life dreaming of moments like this. Earth had finally built ships that could travel far into space, and he was lucky enough to command one of them. "Captain, we're getting close to the Kepler 442 system," said Lisa Grant from her science station. Lisa was the ship's chief science officer, a smart woman who could figure out almost anything about planets in space. She had short brown hair and always wore her blue uniform perfectly neat. "Good work, Lisa. What do we know about this system?" Jake asked as he walked over to look at her screen. "It has 7 planets. 3 of them might be able to support life." "We should check them all," Lisa replied, pointing at the data on her screen. Tony Rodriguez, the security chief, looked up from his station. Tony was a big man with strong arms and a serious face. He always worried about keeping the crew safe. "Captain, should we be ready for trouble?" "We don't know what's out here." Jake smiled. "We're here to make friends, Tony, but stay ready, just in case." Amy Bell, who handled all the ship's communications, suddenly sat up straight in her chair. Amy was young, maybe 25, with long blonde hair. She was very good at her job and could pick up signals from very far away. "Captain, I'm getting something strange," Amy said, her voice excited. "There are signals coming from the 3rd planet. They're not like anything we've heard before." Jake walked over to Amy's station. "What kind of signals?" "They sound like distress calls, but they're very weak. Like someone is asking for help, but their equipment is breaking down," Amy explained, playing the sounds through the speakers. The bridge filled with strange noises that sounded like music mixed with crying. Everyone stopped what they were doing to listen. The sounds made Jake feel sad, even though he didn't understand what they meant. "Can you figure out where exactly they're coming from?" Jake asked. Amy worked on her computer for a few minutes. "Yes, sir. They're coming from the largest continent on the 3rd planet. The signals are getting weaker every day." Lisa checked her instruments. "Captain, that planet looks like it could support life. It has water, breathable air, and the right temperature. But something's wrong with it." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "The atmosphere is changing. It's getting thinner. Whatever is living there might not have much time left," Lisa said, looking worried. Jake thought for a moment. The U.S. horizon was supposed to explore new systems and make contact with any intelligent life they found. But they were also supposed to be careful and not interfere with other species. Still, if someone was in trouble and asking for help, Jake couldn't just ignore it. "Tony, are our weapons ready if we need them?" Jake asked. "Always, Captain," Tony replied. "Amy, keep listening to those signals. Try to figure out if there's a pattern or if you can understand any of it. Lisa, I want to know everything about that planet before we get there." "Yes, sir," both women said at the same time. As the U.S. horizon got closer to the planet, the crew worked hard to learn more about it. Lisa discovered that the planet was covered in strange crystal formations that seemed to be dying. The crystals were losing their color and breaking apart. Amy spent hours listening to the signals. Slowly, she began to understand that they were definitely distress calls. Someone was asking for help, over and over again. "Captain," Amy said after many hours of work, "I think I can understand some of their language now. They keep saying words that mean help, dying, and alone. They've been sending these messages for a very long time." Jake felt his heart sink. "How long?" "Maybe 20 or 30 years, sir. The older messages are much stronger than the new ones. I think fewer of them are left now than when they started calling for help." The ship finally reached the planet, and Jake ordered them to move into orbit. Through the ship's powerful telescopes, they could see cities made of crystal that were falling apart. Some areas that should have been bright with life were now dark and empty. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "I don't think many of them are left alive down there." Dr. Kevin Walsh, the ship's doctor, had been listening to everything from his medical station. Kevin was an older man with gray hair who had seen many sad things in his life. "Captain, if they're dying and asking for help, don't we have to try to save them?" Jake knew Kevin was right, but he also knew that Earth's government had given him orders to be very careful about getting involved with alien species. First contact was supposed to be done slowly and carefully. "Amy, can you send a message back to them? Something simple that shows we want to help?" Jake asked. Amy worked on her computer and then sent a basic message that included mathematical patterns and pictures that showed the U's Horizon wanted to be friends. Within an hour, they got an answer. The message was much stronger than the distress calls had been. It included pictures and sounds that clearly showed excitement and hope. "They want us to come down to the planet, Captain," Amy said. "They're sending us coordinates for a safe place to land." Jake looked around at his crew. Lisa looked curious and excited. Tony looked worried, but ready for anything. Amy looked hopeful. Dr. Walsh looked like he was already thinking about how to help whoever was down there. "All right," Jake said. "We're going down to meet them. Tony, I want a full security team ready. Dr. Walsh, bring your medical equipment. Lisa, you're with me to study whatever we find down there. Amy, keep the communication lines open." As the UE's Horizon prepared to land on the alien world, Jake wondered what they would find. He hoped they weren't too late to help whoever had been calling for help for so many years. Little did he know that this moment would change not just his life, but the entire galaxy forever. The landing shuttle touched down on the crystal planet with a soft thud. Jake Morrison looked out the window and saw a world unlike anything he had ever imagined. Tall crystal trees stretched toward the sky, but many of them were cracked, broken. The ground was covered in crystal formations that should have been bright and colorful, but most were now gray and lifeless. "Stay close together," Jake told his team as they stepped out of the shuttle. Tony Rodriguez had his hand near his weapon, but he kept it hidden. Dr. Kevin Walsh carried his medical bag, and Lisa Grant held her scientific instruments. They didn't have to wait long. A group of beings approached them slowly. Jake's first thought was that they looked like living crystals. They were tall and thin, with bodies that seemed to be made of beautiful colored stone. But these crystals looked sick. Their colors were fading, and some had cracks running through their bodies. The leader of the group stepped forward. When it spoke, Amy Bell's translation device helped them understand the words. "I am Elder Zuzara of the Zirathi people," the being said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "We have been calling for help for 37 of your years. We did not think anyone would ever come." Jake stepped forward and removed his helmet, showing that he trusted them. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. We heard your calls and came as quickly as we could. What has happened to your people?" Elder Zixara's crystal body seemed to dim even more. "We are dying, Captain Morrison. Our world is dying. Our people are dying. We have maybe 1,000 left from what was once millions." Dr. Walsh moved closer, his medical training making him want to help immediately. "What is killing you? Is it a disease? Something in your environment?" "It is not sickness," another Zirathi said, approaching the group. "It is the galactic hegemony. They have made it so we cannot live." Lisa looked confused. "The galactic hegemony? What is that?" Elder Zixara explained that the galaxy was controlled by a group of powerful alien species called the hegemony. They decided which species could live and which had to die. 50 years ago, they declared that the Zirathi were no longer useful to them. "They took our colony worlds," Zixara said. "They destroyed our ships. They blocked our signals so no one could. hear our calls for help. They wanted us to die quietly, and they wanted everyone to forget we ever existed. Jake felt anger building in his chest. Why would they do that? Because we would not join their wars, Zixara replied. We are a peaceful people. We create things that help others live better lives. We can heal sick planets and cure diseases. But the hegemony only cares about conquest and power. They said we were weak and useless. Dr. Walsh knelt down next to a young Zirathi who looked very sick. Can I examine you? I might be able to help. The young Zirathi looked at Elder Zixara, who nodded. As Dr. Walsh began his examination, he was amazed by what he found. The Zirathi were not just crystal beings. They were living creatures who had evolved to work together with crystal technology. Their bodies could create medicines and heal damaged environments. Captain, Dr. Walsh said quietly, these people could revolutionize medicine and environmental science. They could help heal Earth's damaged climate. They could cure diseases we've been fighting for centuries. Meanwhile, Tony Rodriguez was checking his security scanner. Suddenly, he grabbed Jake's arm. Captain, we have company. 3 large ships just appeared in orbit. They're not human. Amy Bell's communication device started making noise. A harsh voice filled the air, speaking in a language that sounded like grinding metal. Amy's translator worked on it for a moment. Attention, human vessel, the voice said. You are in violation of Galactic Hegemony Quarantine Zone 7. Remove yourselves immediately or face the consequences. Jake looked at Elder Zixara. Is that them? The hegemony? Yes, Zixara replied, and for the first time, Jake saw what looked like fear in the crystal being's eyes. They have come to make sure we all die. Jake activated his communication device. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We are conducting a humanitarian mission to help beings in distress. We do not recognize any quarantine that prevents us from saving lives. The hegemony voice came back, sounding angry. Human species, you have been in space for only 20 of your years. You do not understand galactic law. The Zirathi are marked for extinction. Anyone who helps them will be considered an enemy of the hegemony. Jake looked around at his crew. Tony looked ready for a fight. Dr. Walsh was still working on the sick Zirathi. Lisa was recording everything with her instruments. Amy was trying to boost their signal strength. Then Jake looked at Elder Zixara and the other Zirathi. They had been calling for help for 37 years. They were peaceful beings who only wanted to live and help others. Now they were down to their last 1,000 people, and the hegemony wanted even those to die. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Listen carefully, hegemony ships, Jake said into his communication device. The Zirathi people are now under the protection of humanity. We don't abandon friends, and we don't let bullies pick on people who can't fight back. If you want to hurt them, you'll have to go through us first. The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Then the hegemony voice came back, sounding shocked. Human captain, you cannot be serious. Your species has barely left your home world. You have no idea what you are challenging. Maybe not, Jake replied, but I know right from wrong. And what you're doing to these people is wrong. Dr. Walsh stood up from where he had been treating the young Zirathi. Captain, I can help them. Their medical technology combined with ours could save not just them, but millions of beings across the galaxy. We can't let them die. Tony Rodriguez stepped up next to Jake. Captain, the hegemony ships are powering up their weapons. We need to get back to the horizon. Jake looked at Elder Zixara. How many of your people can we fit on our ship? Captain Morrison, Zixara said, you cannot save us all. There are too many of us, and your ship is not large enough. Then we'll make multiple trips, Jake said, and we'll call for more Earth ships to help. Lisa Grant spoke up. Captain, if we do this, we'll be going against orders. Earth Command told us to avoid getting involved in galactic politics. Jake nodded. You're right, Lisa. This is going to cause big problems for Earth. Anyone who wants to go back to the ship and stay out of this can do so. I won't order anyone to risk their career or their life for this. No one moved. Tony crossed his arms and smiled. Dr. Walsh went back to treating Zirathi patients. Lisa started scanning the crystal technology around them. Amy boosted the signal to call for help from other Earth ships. All right then, Jake said. Let's get to work. We have people to save. As the crew of the UES Horizon began loading Zirathi refugees onto their shuttle, the hegemony ships moved closer. Jake knew that within hours, Earth would have to decide whether to support his actions or abandon the Zirathi to their fate. Either way, Jake had made his choice. The Zirathi would not die alone and forgotten, not while he could do something about it. President Helen Carter sat at her desk in the White House, staring at the emergency report that had just arrived from space. The words on the screen seemed impossible to believe. Captain Jake Morrison had just declared war on the most powerful alliance in the galaxy to protect a species that Earth had never heard of before. How bad is this? Helen asked Secretary of Defense Carl Thompson, who stood beside her desk looking very worried. Carl Thompson was a large man with gray hair who had spent his whole life thinking about military problems. Madam President, it's very bad. The galactic hegemony controls over 2,000 star systems. They have ships that could destroy Earth in minutes. We have 12 ships in space, and most of them are just exploration vessels. Chief Diplomat. Maria Santos entered the room carrying a thick folder of documents. Maria was a smart woman who had spent years studying alien cultures and languages. Madam President, I've been analyzing the situation. Captain Morrison may have just given us the biggest opportunity in human history. Helen looked surprised. Opportunity? Carl just told me they could destroy Earth. Yes, they could, Maria. Agreed, but they won't. Not right away. The hegemony rules through fear and control. If they destroy Earth immediately, it will look like they're afraid of us. That would encourage other species to rebel against them. Carl shook his head. Maria, you're gambling with the lives of 8 billion people. Carl, you're thinking like a military man, Maria replied. But this isn't just about military power. It's about something much bigger. Helen leaned back in her chair. Explain. Maria opened her folder and pulled out several documents. I've been studying reports from our few contacts with other alien species. The hegemony isn't popular. They rule through fear, but many species hate them. They've been waiting for someone to stand up to the hegemony first. And you think that someone is us? Helen asked. I think Captain Morrison just made it us, Maria said. The question is, do we support him or do we abandon him? Before Helen could answer, her communication device beeped. It was Amy Bell calling from the UES Horizon. Madam President, this is Communications Officer Amy Bell. Captain Morrison asked me to contact you directly. Go ahead, Officer Bell, Helen said. Ma'am, you need to know what we've discovered here. The Zirathi aren't just another alien species. They have technology that could change everything for humanity. Dr. Kevin Walsh's voice came through the speaker. Madam President, this is Dr. Walsh. I've been working with Zirathi scientists for the past 6 hours. Their medical technology is incredible. They can cure cancer, fix genetic diseases, and even regrow lost limbs. But that's not the most important thing. What is? Helen asked. They can heal damaged environments. They can take a dead planet and make it alive again. They can clean polluted air and water. They can reverse climate change. Helen felt her heart speed up. Earth had been struggling with environmental problems for decades. Are you sure about this? Lisa Grant's voice joined the conversation. Madam President, I've seen their technology work. They're not just claims. The Zirathi have been healing their own planet for thousands of years. They could help us heal Earth. Carl Thompson looked skeptical. Even if that's true, it doesn't matter if the hegemony destroys us all. Amy Bell spoke again. Sir, there's something else you should know. Our communications with the Zirathi have been detected by other species. We're getting messages from all over the galaxy. What kind of messages? Helen asked. Messages of support, ma'am. Species that have been hiding from the hegemony for decades are reaching out to us. They want to help, but they're afraid to act openly. Maria Santos smiled. Madam President, this is exactly what I was talking about. The galaxy has been waiting for someone to make the first move. Helen stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of Washington, D.C. Somewhere up there, Captain Morrison was risking everything to save a species he had just met. The decision she made in the next few minutes would affect every person on Earth. Amy, is Captain Morrison available? Helen asked. Yes, ma'am. He's right here. Jake Morrison's voice came through the speaker. Madam President, I know I've put you in a difficult position. If you need to disavow my actions to protect Earth, I'll understand. Helen was quiet for a moment. Captain, do you really believe the Zirathi are worth risking everything for? Ma'am, I've seen children here who are dying simply because the hegemony decided their species doesn't deserve to exist. They're not warriors or conquerors. They're healers and teachers. If we let them die when we could save them, what does that say about who we are as human beings? Carl Thompson stepped forward. Madam President, I have to advise against this. We're not ready for a galactic war. Carl, you're right, Helen said. We're not ready for a war. But maybe we're ready to show the galaxy what humanity stands for. She activated the communication system that connected her to the entire planet. My fellow citizens of Earth, this is your president. I'm about to tell you something that will change our world forever. For the next 20 minutes, Helen explained the situation to the people of Earth. She told them about the Zirathi, about the hegemony, and about Captain Morrison's decision to protect a dying species. The question now is this, Helen said. Do we support Captain Morrison's actions, knowing that it might bring danger to our world? Or do we abandon the Zirathi to save ourselves? The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within minutes, messages poured in from every country on Earth. The vast majority supported helping the Zirathi, even if it meant risking conflict with the hegemony. Helen turned to Carl Thompson. Carl, I need you to send every available ship to support Captain Morrison. Also, contact our allies on Earth. If we're going to do this, we need to be united. Carl nodded, still looking worried. Yes, ma'am. I'll also start preparing our defenses in case the hegemony decides to attack Earth directly. Maria, Helen said to her diplomat, I need you to reach out to every species that has contacted us. Let them know that Earth is serious about standing up to the hegemony. Tell them that if they want to join us, we welcome their help. As her advisors left to carry out their orders, Helen sat down at her desk and composed a message to the galactic hegemony. To the leaders of the galactic hegemony, she wrote, Earth does not recognize your authority to condemn entire species to extinction. The Zirathi people are now under the protection of humanity. Any attempt to harm them will be considered an act of war against Earth. She paused before sending the message. Once she sent it, there would be no going back. Earth would either become a leader in a new galactic alliance, or it would be destroyed for defying the established order. Helen thought about her children and grandchildren. What kind of galaxy did she want to leave them? One where the strong could destroy the weak whenever they wanted, or one where species helped each other and stood up for what was right. She pressed the send button. Within hours, The hegemony's response came back. It was short and threatening. The human species has 24 hours to withdraw from Zirathi space and hand over all Zirathi refugees. If you do not comply, you will be considered enemies of galactic order and dealt with accordingly. Helen called Captain Morrison directly. Captain, you have the full support of Earth. Do whatever you need to do to protect the Zirathi. Thank you, Madam President, Jake replied. We won't let you down. As Earth prepared for the greatest challenge in human history, messages continued to arrive from across the galaxy. The Melodians, an aquatic species, sent word that they were ready to help. The Kriktar, insect-like beings, offered their fast ships for rescue missions. The Verdani, plant-like creatures, promised to share their agricultural technology. For the first time in decades, species across the galaxy were talking about hope instead of fear. And it all started because one human captain decided that doing the right thing was more important than following orders. 3 weeks had passed since Captain Jake Morrison first met the Zirathi. The UES Horizon was no longer alone in space. 5 more Earth ships had arrived, including the UES Liberty, commanded by Captain Greg Foster, a skilled pilot who had volunteered. Immediately when he heard about the mission, Jake stood in the command center that had been set up on the Zirathi homeworld. The crystal building had been repaired by Zirathi engineers, working alongside human technicians. It was now the headquarters for what everyone was calling the Underground Railroad, a secret network dedicated to saving oppressed species throughout the galaxy. Captain Morrison, said Chloe Davis, the navigation officer from the UES Liberty. Chloe was a young woman with red hair and a brilliant mind for understanding space routes. I've found 3 more refugee settlements. The hegemony has been forcing species to hide for decades. Jake looked at the star map that Chloe had created. Red dots showed hegemony-controlled systems. Blue dots showed places where refugees were hiding. There were far more blue dots than Jake had expected. How many species are we talking about? Jake asked. At least 20, Chloe replied. Maybe more. The hegemony has been very busy destroying anyone who doesn't fit their idea of useful. Rachel Stone, the chief engineer who had helped repair the Zirathi life support systems, entered the command center. Rachel was a tough woman who could fix almost anything, and she looked excited. Captain, you need to see what Vexani and I have been working on, Rachel said. Vexani was a young Zirathi who had become fascinated with human technology. Rachel led Jake to a workshop where human and Zirathi engineers were working together. In the center of the room was a strange-looking device that seemed to blend human metal with Zirathi crystal. It's a cloaking system, Rachel explained. Vexani's people know how to bend light around their ships. Our people know how to hide from electronic sensors. Together, we've created something that can make our ships completely invisible. Jake stared at the device. Does it work? Vexani's crystal body glowed with excitement as he spoke through a translator. Captain Morrison, we tested it yesterday. A hegemony patrol ship passed within 1,000 meters of the test ship and detected nothing. This changes everything, Jake said. We can move refugees without the hegemony seeing us. Over the next few days, the rescue operations began in earnest. Captain Greg Foster led the first mission, using the new cloaking technology to reach a hidden colony of Melodians, the aquatic species that had sent messages of support to Earth. The Melodians lived on a water world that the hegemony had declared unsuitable for development. In reality, it was a beautiful planet covered in vast oceans. But the Melodians were dying because the hegemony had poisoned their water supply, as punishment for refusing to provide soldiers for hegemony wars. Dr. Kevin Walsh worked day and night with Melodian healers and Zirathi scientists to develop a treatment for the poisoned water. The combination of human medical knowledge, Zirathi biotechnology, and Melodian understanding of water chemistry created a solution that nobody could have developed alone. Captain, Dr. Walsh reported after the successful treatment, the Melodians want to formally join our alliance. Their speaker, Aquara, says they've been waiting 50 years for someone to stand up to the hegemony. The success with the Melodians encouraged other species to reach out. Commander Zara Quinn of the UES Defender began coordinating with resistance cells throughout the galaxy. Zara was a serious woman with black hair and sharp eyes who had once been a police detective on Earth. She was very good at organizing people and keeping secrets. Captain Morrison, Zara reported during one of their regular meetings, I've been in contact with the Kriktar. They want to help, but they have a problem. What kind of problem? Jake asked. The hegemony poisoned one of their colony worlds and won't let them return to clean it up. They say it's too dangerous, but really they just want the mineral resources for themselves. Jake thought for a moment. Can we help them reclaim their world? It would be risky, Zara said. The hegemony has a base there. We'd have to fight them directly. But if we succeed, we have the Kriktar as allies, Jake asked. More than that. The Kriktar are master engineers and builders. They could help us construct ships and equipment much faster than we can now. Jake made the decision to help the Kriktar, even though it meant direct confrontation with hegemony forces. The battle for the Kriktar colony world was the first time humans had fought against hegemony troops, and it taught both sides important lessons. The hegemony learned that humans were unpredictable fighters who used tactics they had never seen before. Humans learned that hegemony soldiers were used to easy victories against frightened opponents and didn't know how to handle enemies who fought back intelligently. With help from cloaked human ships and Zirathi healing technology, the Kriktar were able to reclaim their poisoned world. Within days, Kriktar engineers were cleaning the poison from their soil and water. The Kriktar leader, an insect-like being called Cheektar, spoke to Jake through a translator after the victory. Captain Morrison, the Kriktar people pledge our lives to this alliance. We will build ships and weapons for all who stand against the hegemony. News of the victory spread quickly throughout the galaxy. More species began reaching out to the growing alliance. The Verdani, plant-like beings, who were experts at growing food, offered to help feed refugee populations. The Rokani, a species of skilled miners, promised to provide rare materials needed for ship construction. But the most important development came from an unexpected source. Amy Bell, who had been monitoring galactic communications, discovered that many hegemony member species were secretly unhappy with their leaders. Captain, Amy reported, I'm picking up secret transmissions from inside hegemony space. Some of their own member species want to leave the hegemony and join us. Jake was amazed. Are you sure? Yes, sir. There's a species called the Zulani who have been forced to be soldiers for the hegemony for over a century. They hate fighting and want to be free, to pursue art and science instead. President Helen Carter, calling from Earth, was equally surprised when she heard the news. Captain Morrison, are you telling me that the hegemony is falling apart from the inside? It looks that way, Madam President, Jake replied. Apparently, ruling through fear only works until someone gives people hope for something better. The alliance continued to grow. Mark Turner, a legal advisor who had come from Earth to help write alliance agreements, worked with representatives from dozens of species to create the Free Species Alliance Charter. The charter was simple but powerful. It stated that every intelligent species had the right to exist, the right to govern itself, and the right to be protected from those who would destroy them. No species would be forced to fight wars they didn't believe in. No species would be declared useless and marked for extinction. Elder Zix Ara of the Zirathi was the first to sign the charter. President Carter signed for Earth. Within days, Representatives from 23 species had added their names. The signing ceremony was held on the Zirathi homeworld, which was now bustling with activity as refugees from across the galaxy arrived, seeking shelter. The crystal cities, once dying and empty, now glowed with new life as beings from dozens of different worlds worked together. 1 year ago, Elder Zixara said during the ceremony, "My people faced extinction alone. Today, we stand with friends from across the galaxy." This is what the hegemony never understood, that cooperation makes everyone stronger than domination ever could. Captain Morrison watched the ceremony and felt proud, but also worried. The hegemony had been quiet lately, too quiet. Intelligence. Reports suggested they were gathering a massive fleet somewhere in the galaxy's core regions. Commander Zara Quinn approached Jake during the celebration. "Captain, I've been analyzing hegemony troop movements. I think they're planning something big." "How big?" Jake asked. "Big enough to end this rebellion once and for all," Zara replied. "They're not going to let us continue embarrassing them. Soon, they'll have to either destroy us or admit they're not as powerful as they pretend to be." Jake nodded. The alliance had grown strong, but they were still vastly outnumbered by the hegemony. The real test was coming, and everyone knew it. But as Jake looked around at the representatives of dozens of species working together, sharing technology, and planning for a better future, he felt something he hadn't expected to feel: confidence. Hegemony ruled through fear and division. The alliance was built on hope and cooperation. Soon, the galaxy would discover which approach was truly stronger. The warning came from Amy Bell at 3 a.m, Earth time. Her voice was tight with worry as she contacted every ship in the Alliance fleet. "All ships, this is Communications Officer Bell. Long-range sensors show a massive hegemony fleet approaching the Sol system. They have over 200 ships, including 5 super dreadnoughts. Estimated arrival time is 18 hours. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral Morrison, stood on the bridge of the U-East horizon looking at the tactical display. The numbers were frightening. The hegemony had assembled the largest fleet in their history, and they were heading straight for Earth. "Admiral," said Captain Greg Foster over the communication system, "the Liberty is ready for battle. So are the Zirathi ships and the Melodian fleet." Admiral Patricia Brooks, who had arrived from Earth 2 weeks earlier to coordinate the defense, joined Jake on the bridge. Patricia was an experienced military leader with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent her career preparing for threats to Earth, but nothing like this. "Jake," Patricia said, "our intelligence suggests the hegemony commander is Overlord Krathful, their most experienced general. He's never lost a battle." "Well," Jake replied, "there's always a first time." The next 18 hours were filled with preparation. Ships from across the Alliance converged on the Sol system. The Kriktar brought their newly built fighters. The Verdani provided supplies and medical aid. The Zulani, who had defected from the hegemony just weeks earlier, brought valuable intelligence about hegemony tactics. Dr. Kevin Walsh worked with medical teams from dozens of species to prepare field hospitals. Rachel Stone and Vexani made final adjustments to the cloaking systems that would give the Alliance ships their only advantage against the much larger hegemony fleet. When the hegemony fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, their formation was perfect and intimidating. 200 warships arranged in attack formations that had conquered thousands of worlds. At the center was Overlord Krathful's flagship, a massive ship called the Dominator that was larger than anything humans had ever built. Overlord Krathful opened a communication channel that reached every ship in the system. His voice was deep and filled with contempt. "Humans and their pathetic allies," Krathful said, "you have defied the natural order for the last time. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick." Continue to resist, and we will make examples of your worlds that the galaxy will remember for 1,000 years. Admiral Morrison opened his own communication channel in response. Overlord Crathville. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Free Species Alliance. We don't surrender to bullies, we don't abandon our friends, and we don't let tyrants decide who gets to live and who has to die. Crathville's laugh was harsh and cruel. Admiral Morrison, you have 47 ships against our 200. Your defiance is brave but stupid. This will be over quickly. What Crathville didn't know was that the Alliance had spent months preparing for this moment. The battle plan had been created by combining human tactical thinking, Zirathi healing technology, Kriktar engineering, and intelligence from dozens of other species. All ships, Admiral Morrison broadcast, execute Plan Unity. The battle began with the Alliance fleet seeming to scatter in fear, just as Crathville expected. The hegemony ships moved forward in their traditional formation, preparing to destroy. The fleeing ships one by one, but the Alliance ships weren't fleeing. They were moving into positions that Crathville had never seen before. Ships from different species worked together in ways that the hegemony had never imagined possible. Lieutenant Dan Cole, flying a fighter that combined human engineering with Kriktar speed enhancements, led a squadron of mixed-species pilots through the hegemony lines. The fighters were too small and too fast for the big hegemony ships to target effectively. Admiral, Dan reported over the radio, were in position behind their command ship. At the same moment, Commander Zara Quinn activated the cloaking systems. On 12 Alliance ships, they disappeared from hegemony sensors and moved into attack positions. The Zirathi ships, instead of fighting, began broadcasting healing energy that could repair damaged Alliance vessels in the middle of battle. The Melodians used their knowledge of fluid dynamics to predict exactly where hegemony ships would move next. For the first time in his career, Overlord Crathville found himself fighting an enemy that didn't behave the way enemies were supposed to behave. Alliance ships helped each other instead of competing for glory. When one ship was damaged, others moved to protect it while it was healed. What kind of tactics are these? Crathville demanded of his officers. They're fighting like. They actually care about each other. The turning point came when Dan Cole's fighter squadron reached the Dominator. Instead of trying to destroy the massive ship, they targeted specific systems that would disable it without killing the crew. Admiral Morrison to Overlord Crathville. Jake broadcast, your ship is disabled. Your fleet is surrounded, but we're not going to destroy you. Crathville was confused. What do you mean? I mean, we're going to give you a choice, Jake replied. You can order your remaining ships to withdraw and return to hegemony space. Or you can watch what happens when the rest of the galaxy decides they've had enough of your tyranny. As if on cue, hundreds of new ships began appearing throughout. The Sol system, they were ships from species that had never openly opposed the hegemony before, but had been inspired by the Alliance's example. Amy Bell's voice filled the communication channels as she translated messages from dozens of different species. The Pentari Republic declares independence from the hegemony. The Orlani Confederacy will no longer provide soldiers for hegemony wars. The Vex Empire formally recognizes the Free Species Alliance. One by one, species that had been part of the hegemony for centuries announced that they were leaving. Some had been forced members who had always hated the hegemony's methods. Others were voluntary members who had simply grown tired of conquest and wanted to try cooperation instead. Overlord Crathville watched his empire crumble in real time. This is impossible, he said. The hegemony has ruled for 1,000 years. Maybe, Jake replied, but ruling through fear only works until people stop being afraid. Today, the galaxy stopped being afraid. The battle ended not with the destruction of the hegemony fleet, but with most of their ships switching sides. Hegemony soldiers who had been forced to fight wars they didn't believe in gladly joined the alliance. Only the core hegemony species, about 20 systems, refused to surrender. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood in the crystal gardens of New Zarian, watching children from 30 different species play together. The gardens had been built as a symbol of the new galactic order, a place where beings from across the galaxy could come together in peace. Elder Zix-Ara approached, his crystal body now bright and healthy, thanks to the renewed life energy of me. His people. Admiral Morrison, the Galactic Assembly is ready to begin its first session. The Galactic Assembly was the new government that had replaced the hegemony. Unlike the old system, where a few powerful species made decisions for everyone else, the Assembly gave every species an equal voice. President Helen Carter had traveled from Earth for the historic occasion. She stood with Jake on a balcony overlooking the assembly hall where representatives from over 100 species were taking their seats. Jake, Helen said, when you made that first decision to help the Zerathi, did you ever imagine it would lead to this? Jake watched as Dr. Kevin Walsh demonstrated new medical techniques that combined technologies from dozens of worlds. Rachel Stone was teaching young beings from various species how to work together on engineering projects. Amy Bell was helping establish translation protocols that would let any species communicate with any other. Honestly, Madam President, I was just trying to do the right thing, Jake replied. I never imagined that doing the right thing could change an entire galaxy. Elder Zix-Ara joined them on the balcony. Admiral Morrison, there is something the Zerathi people want you to know. We have been recording the history of what happened here. Future generations will learn about the day when humanity showed the galaxy that no one has to face extinction alone. The first session of the Galactic Assembly lasted 3 days. The representatives worked together to establish new laws that protected the rights of all species. They created a mutual defense agreement that would prevent any one group from dominating others. They established trade agreements that would help underdeveloped worlds grow and prosper. Most importantly, they created the Universal Life Protection Act, which stated that no species could ever again be declared obsolete or marked for extinction. As Jake walked through the crystal gardens that evening, he met beings from dozens of worlds. Former hegemony soldiers were learning new skills. From Zerathi teachers, Melodian artists were creating sculptures with Kriktar engineers. Verdani farmers were sharing growing techniques with human agriculturalists. A young Zerathi approached Jake, its crystal body glowing with the bright colors of health and happiness. Through a translator, it said, Admiral Morrison, my name is Sikani. I wanted to thank you for saving my people. You don't need to thank me, Jake replied. We're all part of the same galaxy. We should help each other. Is that why humans are so strange? The young Zerathi asked. Other species, TH.
The stars twinkled indifferently as two massive fleets faced each other across the void. On one side, the crystalline ships of the Arctarians reflected light in dazzling patterns. On the other, the smoky vessels of the Vesperians rippled like dark clouds against the blackness of space. For 300 years, these two civilizations had fought over the same territories, the same resources, and neither side had gained any advantage. The Arctarians were beings of living crystal. Their bodies channeled light in complex patterns that served as their language. Their society valued order and symmetry above all else. They had conquered the northern regions of the galaxy, building perfect geometric cities on thousands of worlds. The Vesperians existed as conscious gas clouds contained within specially designed vessels. They communicated through density fluctuations and chemical reactions. Their civilization prized adaptation and flow. They had spread throughout the southern galaxy, creating floating habitats that drifted through the atmospheres of gas giants. Between them lay the disputed zone, 50 star systems that both sides claimed. The war had devastated these once thriving regions. Planets had been bombed until their surfaces cracked. Space stations lay broken and abandoned. The few surviving inhabitants had long since fled or perished. Today marked the start of the 300th year of war. Neither side remembered exactly what had triggered the conflict. Some scholars believed it began over a misunderstanding about resource rights. Others claimed it started with a cultural offense that could not be forgiven. Whatever the cause, the war had continued for so long that fighting had become normal. Peace had become unimaginable. On the bridge of the Arcturian, Command Ship Crystal Spear, Supreme Commander Xerax watched the enemy fleet through sensory fields. His crystalline body pulsed with blue light as he communicated with his officers. The Vesperians have brought their usual number of ships, he observed. They will attack from 3 directions, as they always do. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander, Quartz, flashed acknowledgement patterns. And we will counter as we always do. The battle will end in stalemate, as it always does. Neither officer questioned why they continued fighting. Their duty was to follow the war protocols established by their ancestors. Victory seemed impossible, but surrender was unthinkable. Across the battlefield, aboard the Vesperian flagship Eternal Mist, High Commander Nebula swirled within her containment vessel. Her gaseous form shifted between shades of purple and green as she reviewed the tactical display. The Arcturians maintain their standard formation, she noted to her advisors. They will deploy their crystal drones first, followed by their energy lances. Her chief strategist, war planner Vapor, rippled in agreement. We will counter with our usual defenses. The battle will proceed as it has 10,000 times before. The Vesperians knew they could not win. Their weapons could penetrate Arcturian shields, but Arcturian regeneration technology repaired damage almost instantly. Similarly, the Arcturians could hit Vesperian ships, but the gaseous beings simply redistributed themselves to undamaged vessels. The war had become a ritual, a performance both sides enacted without hope of conclusion. As both fleets prepared to engage, an unexpected energy signature appeared between them. A small ship, unlike any design known to either civilization, dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in the battle zone. On the bridge of the Earth exploration ship Horizon, alarms blared as Captain Allison Wright took in the scene before her. 2 alien fleets, both in battle formation, reported her first officer Jack Bennett. His hands flew over the controls as he assessed the situation. Both appear armed and ready to engage. Captain, we've dropped right into the middle of a war zone. Allison gripped the arms of her command chair. The Horizon was humanity's first deep space exploration vessel. Built with newly developed faster-than-light technology, it carried a crew of 200 scientists, engineers, and military personnel. Their mission was to explore and establish first contact with alien civilizations. They had not expected to find themselves in the middle of an alien conflict. Raise shields. Prepare escape routes, she ordered calmly. Communications, are you? Receiving any transmissions from either fleet? Communications Officer Lisa Riley nodded. Multiple signals, Captain. They're transmitting in unknown languages, but the universal translator is processing them. Put it through when ready. The bridge fell silent as everyone waited. After a few tense moments, the translator produced its first results. Captain, Lisa said, her voice tight with surprise. Both sides are ordering us to identify ourselves, and both sides are offering us alliance against the other. Allison raised an eyebrow. They're trying to recruit us? It appears so, Lisa confirmed. The translation is rough, but both messages contain offers of technology and resources in exchange for our assistance. Before Allison could respond, Science Officer Samuel Peterson spoke up from his station. Captain, I'm analyzing the energy readings from both fleets. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but there's something strange about the pattern of advancement. Explain, Allison prompted. It's as if they've been developing weapons and defenses specifically to counter each other. For every weapon, one side has, the other has the perfect defense, and vice versa. It's like they've evolved into perfect opponents. Tactical Officer Kate Powell added her assessment. Their fleets are perfectly matched, Captain. Neither side has a numerical or positional advantage. This looks like a battle that could go on forever without a winner. Allison considered this information carefully. Humanity had only recently reached the stars. Earth had unified under a single government just 50 years earlier after centuries of war had nearly destroyed the planet. The hard lessons of those conflicts had shaped human development. They had learned that understanding different perspectives was essential for peace. Send a message to both fleets, Allison decided. Inform them that we are a neutral third party from Earth. Request a temporary ceasefire so we can establish communication. As Lisa transmitted the message, the science team continued analyzing the alien civilizations. The crystalline ships belong to a species that appears to communicate through light patterns, Samuel reported. The others seem to be some form of gaseous entity contained in specialized vessels. Their biology and psychology are likely radically different from each other, and from us, Allison added thoughtfully. To everyone's surprise, both alien fleets halted their approach. After a brief pause, responses came from both sides, agreeing to a temporary truce to communicate with the new arrivals. They've both invited us to send representatives to discuss an alliance, Lisa announced. Or we could invite them here, Jack suggested. Neutral ground. Allison nodded slowly. Prepare the conference room. We'll host delegations from both sides. She stood up and straightened her uniform. Contact Earth Command immediately. Inform President Martinez that we've encountered 2 alien civilizations locked in war, and that both want our help. What are your orders, Captain? Jack asked. Allison stared at the view screen where the 2 massive fleets hung motionless against the stars. We came here to explore and establish peaceful contact, she said firmly. But it seems we found something else, a war that no one can win. She turned to face her crew. Let's see if humanity can help them find a way to end it. The message to Earth traveled faster than light, but the response would still take hours. Meanwhile, Captain Allison Wright prepared to meet the alien delegations. She selected a small team: Science Officer Samuel Peterson, Communications Officer Lisa Riley, and Security Chief Alan Garcia. We need to understand why they can't end this war, Allison told her team as they gathered in the conference room. 300 years is a long time to fight without a winner. The room had been divided into 3 sections. The human area contained normal chairs and tables. The Arcturian section featured crystalline platforms that would resonate with their light-based communication. The Vesperian area included special atmosphere generators that would allow them to exit their containment vessels safely. The translator should help us understand their languages, Lisa said, adjusting settings on her device. But understanding their thinking will be harder. Samuel nodded in agreement. These species evolved in completely different environments. Their basic concepts might not translate easily to our understanding, or to each other's, Alan added, checking his non-lethal defensive equipment one last time. A chime sounded, indicating the arrival of the first shuttle. The Arcturian delegation had reached the horizon. 3 crystalline beings entered the conference room. They moved with precise geometric motions. Their bodies reflected light in complex patterns that the humans couldn't interpret naturally. The lead Arcturian stood slightly taller than the others, its crystal form shifting between blue and violet hues. Welcome aboard the Horizon, Allison said formally. I am Captain Allison Wright. The translator processed her words, converting them into light patterns. The lead Arcturian flashed in response, and the translator spoke in a synthetic voice. I am High Prism Zenith of the Arcturian Unity. We acknowledge your neutrality, humans. Your appearance is fortuitous. The enemy must be defeated. Before Allison could respond, the second shuttle arrived. The Vesperian delegation entered through a separate airlock. 3 containment vessels floated into the room, each holding swirling gases in shades of green and purple. The vessels were connected to mechanical limbs that allowed the Vesperians to manipulate objects. I am Flow Director Cumulus of the Vesperian Collective. The lead Vesperian introduced itself after the translator processed the chemical signals from its gaseous form. We appreciate your neutrality, humans. Your assistance will help us overcome the enemy. Allison noticed how both sides used similar language. Both called the other the enemy, without using specific names. Both assumed humans would help them win. We haven't agreed to help either side, Allison clarified. We want to understand this conflict first. 300 years is a long time to fight without reaching a conclusion. High prism zeniths crystals pulsed rapidly. The conflict continues because the enemy refuses to accept the correct organization of resources. The conflict continues because the enemy insists on rigid control of what should flow freely. Flow Director Cumulus countered, its gases swirling faster. Samuel leaned forward with interest. You're fighting over how to manage resources? Both aliens confirmed this was essentially correct. The Arctarians believe in fixed orderly systems, Zenith explained. All things must have their place. The Vesperians understand that adaptation and change are necessary, Cumulus countered. Resources must flow where needed. Allison exchanged glances with her team. A 300-year war over resource management philosophy seemed extreme. Have you tried compromise? Lisa asked. Perhaps combining both approaches? Both alien leaders responded with what the humans recognized as confusion. The translator struggled with their replies, but the message became clear. Neither species could conceive of adopting the other's methods. Their biology and psychology made compromise literally unthinkable. As the meeting continued, more details emerged. The Arctarians and Vesperians had evolved in completely different environments. Arctarians came from a crystalline planet with predictable cycles and stable conditions. Vesperians evolved in the chaotic atmosphere of a gas giant. Their fundamental understanding of reality differed at the most basic level. After 2 hours of increasingly tense discussion, Allison called for a break. The alien delegations returned to their shuttles, promising to continue talks later. Back on the bridge, Allison received word that a message had arrived from Earth. President Gregory Martinez appeared on the main screen. His expression was serious but curious. Captain Wright, your report is extraordinary. First contact with not one but 2 advanced alien civilizations, both locked in war. What's your assessment of the situation? Allison stood with her hands behind her back. Sir, we're dealing with 2 species that evolved along completely different paths. Both highly intelligent, both technologically advanced, but with incompatible worldviews. They've been fighting so long they can't imagine peace. And they both want our help, the president noted. What do you recommend? I believe we can help them, sir, but not by taking sides. Humanity has something neither of them has. And what's that, Captain? Perspective. We evolved as adaptable problem solvers. We can understand both rigid structures and flexible systems. We've learned from our own wars that understanding different viewpoints is essential for peace, isn't it? Martinez nodded slowly. Very well. I'm authorizing Operation Harmony. Your mission is to find a peaceful solution to this conflict. You have 5 hours before I must report to the United Earth Council. 5 hours? Allison couldn't hide her surprise. That's all the time we have before word spreads and other nations demand involvement. Do what you can, Captain. Martinez out. The screen went blank. Allison turned to her officers. 5 hours to end a 300-year war. Let's get to work. She called for all department heads to meet immediately. In the ship's main conference room, she explained the situation. We need solutions, not observations, she told her team. Each of you, approach this from your specialty. What can humans see that these aliens can't? Engineer Paul Johnson spoke first. I've been analyzing their technology. Both sides use quantum-locked crystalline compounds for their ships, but they're using different resonance frequencies. If they adjusted those frequencies, they could access resources that are currently invisible to both of them. Military strategist Colonel Adam White added his thoughts. Their battle tactics are completely predictable to each other. They've been fighting the same way for centuries. They need asymmetric approaches. Their languages contain no concept of compromise, Lisa pointed out. I've been studying the translator data. They literally cannot express certain ideas to each other. Samuel had been quiet, but now he looked up with excitement. What if we could help them understand each other? Not just translate words, but translate perspectives. How would we do that? Allison asked. We modify our neural interface technology. Create an empathy translator that converts thought patterns between species. The room fell silent as everyone, considered this idea. It could work, Lisa finally said, but building it would take time. Time is something we don't have, Allison reminded them. We have less than 5 hours to find a way to end this war. She stood up, decision made. Paul, work on the resonance frequency solution. Lisa and Samuel developed the empathy translator concept. Adam, prepare a strategic plan that gives both sides advantages without disadvantaging either. The rest of you, support these teams. As her crew dispersed to their tasks, Allison stared out the viewport at the two massive alien fleets still holding position in space. Somewhere in the human perspective lay the answer to a conflict that had devastated thousands of worlds. 5 hours to solve what alien civilizations couldn't resolve in 3 centuries. The countdown had begun. The first hour passed quickly as the human crew worked on their solutions. Captain Allison Wright moved between teams, checking progress and offering encouragement. The alien delegations remained on their shuttles, waiting for the next meeting. Into the engineering lab, Paul Johnson and his team studied the alien materials they had scanned from both fleets. Look at this, Paul said, pointing to a holographic display showing molecular structures. Both species use the same base materials for their ships and technology. The only difference is how they arrange the molecules. His assistant, Susan Lee, nodded in understanding. The Arcturians lock their molecules in rigid patterns. The Vesperians allow theirs to flow in controlled streams. Exactly, Paul confirmed. But what if we could show them a middle approach, a structure that combines stability with flexibility? They began building a prototype using the ship's molecular printers. Their goal was to create a small device that could adjust quantum frequencies, allowing both alien species to see resources they currently couldn't detect. Meanwhile, in the communications center, Lisa Riley and Samuel Peterson worked on their empathy translator. They had connected their standard translator to the ship's neural mapping system, originally designed to help humans communicate with each other during complex operations. The challenge is massive, Samuel admitted, as he adjusted the system parameters. We're not just translating words, we're trying to translate entire worldviews. Lisa nodded as she sorted through the language data they had collected. The Arcturians have no words for flow or adapt. The Vesperians have no concept of permanence or stability. That's why they can't understand each other, Samuel realized. It's not just that they won't compromise. They literally cannot comprehend each other's basic values. In the tactical center, Colonel Adam White studied battle records from the alien war. His experience in Earth's past conflicts gave him a unique perspective. They're both using perfect symmetrical warfare, he explained to Captain Wright when she checked his progress. Every attack has a perfect counter. Every defense has a perfect weakness. It's like they're playing chess where neither side can ever checkmate. What's your solution? Allison asked. Adam displayed a new battle plan on his screen. Asymmetric resource allocation. Instead of fighting over the same systems, they could each expand in directions the other doesn't value. The Arcturians prefer stable planetary systems. The Vesperians thrive in gas giants and nebulae. There's enough space in this sector for both to expand without competing. At the 2-hour mark, Allison called her team leaders together. Progress reports, she requested. Paul spoke first. We've created a prototype resonance modulator. It can reveal resources that are currently invisible to both species because of how they perceive quantum states. Our empathy translator is functioning at basic levels, Samuel reported next. It can convert Arcturian concepts into forms Vesperians might understand and vice versa. It's not perfect, but it's a start. And I've mapped out territories where each species could thrive without competing with the other, Adam concluded. Allison nodded with satisfaction. Good work, everyone. Now we need to bring the alien delegations back for the next phase. The aliens returned to the conference room, both sides still wary of each other. Captain Wright explained that humans had been analyzing the situation and had developed potential solutions. Before we present our findings, she said carefully, we need to understand more about how this war began. High Prism Zenith's crystalline body flickered with blue light. The conflict began when the Vesperians violated the resource distribution protocols in the Centauri sector. Flow Director Cumulus swirled with agitation inside its containment vessel. The conflict began when the Arcturians imposed rigid controls on resources that should flow naturally in the Centauri sector. Allison noted how both mentioned the same sector, but described the problem differently. What was in the Centauri sector that made it so important? Both aliens described a rare element their civilizations needed. The humans recognized it as similar to what Earth scientists called neutronium, a super-dense material used in advanced energy systems. And this element exists only in the Centauri sector? Samuel asked. It is where the element is most accessible, Zenith answered. It is where the element flows most freely, Cumulus added. Paul stepped forward with his prototype device. We've analyzed your scanning technologies. Both of your species can only detect this element at certain quantum frequencies. But our scans show it exists throughout this region of space, at different frequencies. He activated the device, which projected a holographic map of the disputed zone. Different colors showed resources at different quantum frequencies. The areas you're fighting over represent only 20% of the available resources, Paul explained. With simple modifications to your sensors, you could each access 5 times more of this element without competing with each other. Both alien leaders showed signs of surprise. Their translations contained terms of disbelief and confusion. This cannot be correct, Zenith insisted. Our sensors are perfect. Our detection systems are advanced beyond error, Cumulus added. Samuel activated the empathy translator. Perhaps we can help you understand each other's perspective on this. The device hummed softly as it processed the neural patterns of both species. Then it displayed 2 separate holograms. One showed the universe, as the Arcturians perceived it, a perfectly ordered structure where everything had its proper place. The other showed how the Vesperians saw reality, a flowing, ever-changing system where adaptation was key to survival. Both of these views are valid, Samuel explained. Both are true from a certain perspective, but neither is complete on its own. Lisa approached with data reports. Your languages evolved to express your own experiences. The Arcturians have 57 words for different types of perfect crystalline structures. The Vesperians have 43 terms for various flow patterns, but neither language can express the concepts that are basic to the other species. Allison watched as both alien delegations absorbed this information. She could see signs of confusion, but also the first hints of understanding. We don't suggest that either of you change your fundamental nature, she said carefully. But perhaps you can expand your understanding to include other possibilities. Adam presented his strategic plan next. There are regions of space better suited to Arcturian settlement, stable systems with solid planets. And there are regions more appropriate for Vesperian expansion, gas giants and nebulae with dynamic environments. Instead of competing for the same territories, you could each develop the areas that match your natural preferences. The alien leaders were silent for several minutes, processing these new ideas. Then High Prism Zenith spoke. Your species is young, yet you perceive what we have not seen in 3 centuries. How is this possible? Captain Wright considered her answer carefully. Humans evolved as adaptable problem solvers. Our planet has both solid ground and flowing water, stable mountains and changing weather. We understand both perspectives because we've experienced both. We also learned from our own conflicts, she continued. We nearly destroyed ourselves fighting over resources before we realized cooperation benefited everyone more than competition. 3 hours had passed. They had 2 hours remaining to end a war that had lasted 3 centuries. The foundations had been laid, but the hardest part was still to come, convincing both sides to take the first step toward peace. The 4th hour began with a tentative breakthrough. Both alien leaders had agreed to test the human theories, but they remained cautious. Neither trusted the other after centuries of conflict. Words and ideas are not enough, High Prism Zenith stated, light patterns pulsing with skepticism. We require demonstration. Agreement, Flow Director Cumulus responded, gases swirling in patterns that the translator interpreted as cautious interest. Concepts must be proven in reality. Captain, Allison Wright expected this response. We propose a field test in a disputed system. We can demonstrate our solutions in a real-world scenario. The aliens agreed to this plan. They selected a nearby star system that had been a battleground for decades. Both fleets had ships there, locked in the same endless stalemate that characterized the entire war. Allison turned to her crew. We'll take the Horizon to the test site. Engineer Johnson, prepare multiple resonance modulators. Colonel White, finalize your strategic proposal. Lisa and Samuel, bring the empathy translator. We need to be ready for any situation. The alien delegations returned to their flagships, agreeing to meet at the test system. As the Horizon prepared to depart, First Officer Jack Bennett approached the captain. This is a significant risk, he said quietly. We'll be placing ourselves between two powerful alien fleets that have been at war for centuries. Allison nodded seriously. I understand the danger, but this may be our only chance to prevent more destruction. Sometimes peace requires risk. Horizon engaged its faster-than-light drive. Within minutes, they arrived at the disputed system. It contained 3 planets circling a yellow star similar to Earth's sun. The once beautiful worlds showed scars of long conflict, cratered surfaces, and damaged atmospheres. In orbit around the second planet, Arcturian and Vesperian warships faced each other in a standoff. Neither side attacked, but neither would retreat. They had been in this position for years. The Horizon positioned itself between the fleets. Captain Wright opened communications with both sides. This is Captain Wright of the Earth ship Horizon. We are here with the approval of your leaders to demonstrate potential solutions to your conflict. The alien commanders responded with surprise and suspicion. They had not been informed of this development. After consultation with their flagships, however, they agreed to observe without taking hostile action. Engineer Paul Johnson prepared the first demonstration. He and his team had created several resonance modulators, each designed to reveal resources at different quantum frequencies. They loaded these devices onto a small shuttle. The shuttle will deploy the modulators near the second planet. Paul explained to the alien commanders. These devices will temporarily adjust the quantum frequency in this system, allowing both your species to detect resources that were previously invisible to you. The shuttle launched from the Horizon and approached the battle-scarred planet. As it reached the optimal position, Paul activated the modulators remotely. Energy waves spread outward, washing over the planet and surrounding space. Almost immediately, both alien fleets reported unexpected sensor readings. The Arcturian commander's transmission showed increasing surprise. Our sensors detect new deposits of the essential element, the crystalline being reported, in locations we previously found barren. The Vesperian commander confirmed similar findings. The element flows in patterns we did not perceive before. The quantity exceeds our previous measurements by factors of 4. On the Horizon's bridge, the crew exchanged hopeful glances. The first demonstration had succeeded. Paul's device had proven that resources existed beyond what either species could naturally detect. Colonel Adam White prepared the next phase. Using the ship's advanced mapping systems, he had analyzed the entire disputed region and created a resource distribution plan. This strategic map shows optimal development zones for each civilization, he explained, displaying a holographic star chart. Arcturians would focus on stable planetary systems here, here, and here. He highlighted several star clusters. Vesperians would develop these gas giant systems and nebula regions. Neither would interfere with the other's primary zones. The alien commanders studied the map with interest. The strategic sense of the plan was obvious even across species barriers. For the first time in centuries, they could see a path that didn't require constant conflict, but old habits and suspicions remained strong. The Arcturian commander's light patterns flickered with doubt. How can we trust the Vesperians to respect boundaries? Their nature is to expand and flow beyond limits. The Vesperian commander's gases swirled with similar distrust. The Arcturians will attempt to impose rigid control beyond their territories. It is their unchanging pattern. This was the critical moment. Understanding resources and strategy wasn't enough. The fundamental barrier remained. Neither species could truly comprehend the other's perspective. Samuel Peterson and Lisa Riley activated the empathy translator. This improved version had been calibrated with the data they had gathered during previous interactions. This device doesn't just translate words, Samuel explained. It translates thought patterns and perceptions. For the first time, you will experience how the other species understands reality. The device sent carefully modulated signals to the command ships of both fleets. The neural patterns of each species were translated into forms the other could process. For a full minute, silence filled the communication channels. Then slowly, responses began to come in. Most unusual, the Arcturian commander transmitted. We perceive flow patterns, adaptability, concepts previously without meaning. Strange sensation, the Vesperian commander responded. We experience stability, permanence, previously incomprehensible states. On the Horizon's bridge, Captain Wright watched the exchange with growing hope. They're finally understanding each other, she whispered. The empathy connection continued, allowing each species to experience the other's perspective for the first time in their long history. Neither could fully adopt the other's worldview, but they could now recognize it as valid, a different way of processing the same reality. As the fourth hour neared its end, Allison addressed both fleets. You've seen that resources exist beyond what either of you can naturally detect. You've seen how territories can be divided according to your natural preferences. And now, you've experienced each other's perspective. None of these solutions require you to change your fundamental nature. They simply expand your understanding of possibilities. She paused, letting her words sink in. For 300 years, you fought a war that neither side could win. Today you have the opportunity to end that war by recognizing that victory doesn't require defeat of the other. It requires finding a new path forward. The commanders of both fleets requested time to consult with their leaders. As they did, the human crew of the Horizon waited anxiously. They had done everything possible in the time available. Now they could only hope their efforts would be enough to end centuries of conflict. The fifth hour was about to begin, the final hour of humanity's attempt to end an alien war. The fifth hour began with tense silence. On the bridge of the Horizon, Captain Allison Wright and her crew waited for responses from the alien fleets. The minutes stretched like hours as both the Arcturians and Vesperians deliberated. Do you think they'll agree to peace? First Officer Jack Bennett asked quietly. They've fought for 3 centuries, Allison replied. Old habits are hard to break, but we've shown them something new, a perspective neither had considered before. Finally, the communication system activated. High Prism Zenith of the Arcturians appeared on one screen, while Flow Director Cumulus of the Vesperians appeared on another. Both leaders had joined their fleet commanders at the test site. The Arcturian Unity has considered your demonstrations, Zenith began, crystal form shimmering with complex light patterns. We find your evidence compelling. The Vesperian Collective has analyzed your proposals, Cumulus added, gases swirling thoughtfully in its containment vessel. Your approach offers unexpected possibilities. Allison felt a surge of hope. Are you prepared to end hostilities and begin working toward a peaceful solution? Both alien leaders paused. 300 years of conflict could not be erased. In a single moment, trust between their species seemed almost impossible after so much destruction. We require additional assurance, Zenith stated finally, a binding mechanism to ensure compliance. Agreement, Cumulus responded. Verification systems must be established. This was the final hurdle. Both sides were open to peace, but neither trusted the other to maintain it. Allison turned to her team for ideas. Samuel Peterson stepped forward. What if we create a joint monitoring system? A network using human technology that would allow both sides to verify the other is respecting agreements. Engineer Paul Johnson expanded on this concept. We could deploy permanent resonance modulators throughout the disputed regions. These would allow both species to monitor resource distribution transparently. And neutral zones could be established at borders, Colonel Adam White suggested, areas where both species could interact under clear protocols. Communications officer Lisa Riley had been working on the translator data. She looked up with excitement. I believe we can create a permanent version of the empathy translator, a communication system that allows your species to understand each other directly. Allison considered these ideas, then presented them to the alien leaders. Earth is prepared to assist in establishing these systems. We offer our technology and perspective as tools to build lasting peace. The aliens deliberated again, but more briefly this time. When they responded, their decision was clear. The Arcturian Unity accepts these terms, Zenith announced. We will cease hostile actions immediately. The Vesperian Collective agrees to these conditions. Cumulus confirmed. All offensive operations will terminate. Throughout the disputed system, weapons powered down, targeting systems disengaged. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Arcturians and Vesperians were not actively at war, but one critical test remained. Allison knew that for peace to last, the aliens needed to take active steps toward cooperation, not merely cease fighting. As a first demonstration of your commitment, she suggested, perhaps your forces in this system could work together on a joint project. After brief consideration, both leaders agreed. They selected the second planet, once a beautiful world, now scarred by war, as their focus. Using the resonance modulators, both species discovered resources they had previously overlooked. With their complementary abilities, they could begin restoration efforts that neither could accomplish alone. The Arcturians, with their affinity for stable structures, could rebuild the planet's geological foundations. The Vesperians, experts in atmospheric systems, could help restore the damaged air and weather patterns. Within minutes, ships from both fleets moved into new positions, not battle formations, but work patterns. For the first time, Arcturian and Vesperian vessels operated side by side without hostility. As the 5th hour neared its end, Captain Wright received a communication from Earth. President Gregory Martinez appeared on screen, his expression tense with anticipation. Captain, our time is up. What's your report? Allison smiled with tired satisfaction. Mr. President, I'm pleased to inform you that the war has ended. Both the Arcturians and Vesperians have agreed to cease hostilities and begin cooperative efforts. The President's expression shifted to amazement. You've ended a 300-year alien war in 5 hours? How is this possible? We didn't force a solution, sir. We simply helped them see perspectives they couldn't recognize on their own. The resonance modulators showed them resources they didn't know existed. The strategic plan gave them territories, suited to their natural preferences, and the empathy translator helped them understand each other for the first time. Remarkable, the President said softly. You've accomplished something historic today, Captain. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our adaptability, Allison replied. We understand both structure and flow, stability and change. We've learned from our own conflicts that different perspectives can complement rather than contradict each other. After the call ended, Allison addressed her crew. Everyone, take a moment to appreciate what we've accomplished today. We came, searching for new civilizations, and we found a way to help them find peace. Over the following weeks, the peace process continued. Earth sent additional ships with teams of diplomats, engineers, and scientists to help implement the agreements. The resonance modulator technology was shared with both alien species, allowing them to access previously invisible resources. The ITR empathy translator was refined to facilitate ongoing communication. A joint council was established with representatives from all 3 species. The Arcturians and Vesperians began the long process of healing wounds inflicted over centuries. Damaged worlds would take decades to restore, but the work had begun. 6 months later, the Earthship Horizon prepared to leave the region. Their mission of exploration would continue into other sectors of space. Before departing, Captain Wright attended a ceremony aboard a newly constructed space station at the border between Arcturian and Vesperian territories. High Prism Zenith and Flow Director Cumulus met her in the station's central chamber. Both alien leaders had evolved in their understanding since their first encounter with humans. The Arcturian unity acknowledges the debt we owe to humanity, Zenith stated, crystal form glowing with formal patterns. You showed us a fixed point we could not perceive from our position. The Vesperian collective recognizes humanity's contribution, Cumulus added, gases forming respectful patterns within its containment vessel. You revealed flow patterns beyond our awareness. Together, they activated a memorial, a monument, combining crystalline structure and flowing energy patterns. It displayed a simple message in the languages of all three species: peace through understanding. As Captain Wright returned to her ship, she reflected on humanity's place in the galaxy. They had discovered they were neither the strongest nor the most technologically advanced species. But they had something unique: the ability to bridge perspectives, to help others see beyond their limitations. The war no one could win had ended, not through superior firepower or complex negotiations, but through humanity's greatest gift: the ability to understand and connect different ways of seeing the universe.